she'll do something and I smile and laugh and she's like, oh, I'm doing that right. And it just, like I said, it just got easier. We just got to understand that it wasn't about trying to make each other mad. It wasn't because we were upset. It's just, that's the way we were. Different people completely.
What is up, my friend? First off, thank you for being here. Your role as a father is critical. And the fact that you're pausing to invest in who you are so that you can show up well for your family is incredible. Our world is in desperate need of men just like you. 3 nuggets that hit me from my conversation with my friend Sean today are: 1, how to be the home that your kids' friends want to be at. Like, do your kids' friends want to come over, have dinner, feel comfortable? Do they look to you for stability, advice, acknowledgement? How can you be that home? Number 2 is considering the military for your kiddo. Has that ever popped into your head? What would that look like? Is that something that your kid would be interested in, and thinking through, working through that? And then number 3 is how to build confidence in your children. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, getting wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Schau, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 13 to 19, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yeah, my friend, I am in the thick of it. I am in this with you, working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world to the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend Sean Bothelio. He is a father, a husband, and a man with a heart to serve, love, and support all those who are brought into his path. Enjoy meeting my friend, Sean. Sean, happy Friday. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How you feeling today?
Really good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this. We had breakfast maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago. We were talking some business, but then at the time, some fatherhood stuff came up that was just intriguing. And so I was really looking forward to furthering that portion of our conversation. So thanks for joining me today. But my first question right out the gate is, how old do you find yourself today?
I am gay for a couple more days.
Okay, so you'll be 59 in a couple days. You're on this home stretch to 60, which is definitely a milestone people think about. Are you starting to kind of reflect on maybe your 50s, or like, what do you start thinking about as you're approaching 60? Is there anything that you're currently reflecting on?
We've had a first grandchild in the last year. I guess just the awesomeness of having a grandbaby. And, why did it take this long? I guess that's kind of been our last year. That's really thinking about, we're looking forward to grandchildren, more grandchildren, and, in our 60s onwards.
And then as you step into 59, is there any little bucket list things or things that you want to do before you hit 60? Is it like, I want to do X, Y, or Z in this last year of my 50s?
Yeah, I haven't thought much about it. I guess we've been pretty lucky. We've done a lot of things in life. Most of our bucket list stuff we've done. I think we're just trying to get to retirement, and then we'll start doing some of those things, traveling and things like that.
What about health-wise? Like, sometimes I know it's like a new year. So your birthday's in December, right? So your birthday's right around that. Also, it's like a new year. So sometimes people have New Year's resolutions. It's like, okay, I want to run a marathon, or I want to do X, Y, or Z. Is there anything like that kind of on the horizon for you?
I think my wife and I both kind of talked about trying to get healthy again. Like I said, the last year with a grandbaby, that's all we've been doing. And we've kind of let everything else fall to the wayside. The kids call and say, hey, can you watch a baby? And we drop everything.
Yeah, love it.
So I think it's trying to get back into the gym, trying to get in better shape before I hit 60 for sure.
There you go. That's awesome. So grandbaby's close then, lives close?
Yeah, we're real lucky. Our grandchild lives 25 minutes down the road.
Beautiful.
So we're lucky enough to see him at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week.
How incredible. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, proximity these days, right? Like, on one hand, the world is smaller because we can fly here, there, and everywhere. But what are your thoughts or feelings about living close to your kids and your grandkids?
Oh, it's huge. It's being able to just run down there when they call us,
Yeah.
or, they want to come up and spend dinner, have dinner with us, spend time with us, which is, we're pretty happy that they still reach out to us and say, hey, can we come up for dinner tomorrow night? Just out of the blue. So the fact that they want to come spend time with us and close enough to do it is great.
Interesting. I might be thinking about this more because I have one kid in college and then one kid about to head to college. and then two more who are then going to graduate high school. So it's like the next 3 years is very quickly not empty nest because I have a 13-year-old, but it's a shift in our home. And I'm starting to talk to our kids, because we're in Hawaii now. So they're going to college mainland. So there's this distance that's now there. So trying to say, hey, you guys are going to land with spouses and jobs somewhere. Start thinking about if you want that to be near each other. It's less about me, but because I'll move wherever, I don't care, but each other. So something I've been thinking about. Sean, how many years have you been married?
It's been, I forget that's right. I think it's 34, 35 years.
Wow.
34, it's just 34 years. That's right. Next year will be
Wow.
35.
Good for you, man. That's incredible. For the guy who is about to celebrate his 25th and he's feeling good, he's excited about it. What would you say either to yourself back then or to this, 25 years in that is exciting in that next 10 years of marriage? I mean, obviously, grandbaby, you don't have kids living at home, but what are some of the exciting things like from 25 to 35 that you've been able to experience with Kim?
Got easier for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, we've become closer friends. We do things together. We miss each other when we're apart. What else can I say? Once the kids were out of the house, it was just more time for us to do things together. And and we enjoy it. We want to be with each
Yeah,
other.
I mean, you said it's like you were trying to find more to say, but you said four incredibly significant things that I think sometimes we don't always feel that way. Like, oh wow, you miss your spouse when you're away from them. Like that's a big statement. I think you enjoy your time together. You're having more fun, or you said you're having fun. And then the other one was, oh shoot, this is the one that really kind of stuck out to me. It was it got easier. So what advice or feedback would you give to a guy that he could be doing now to invest in that relationship so that it gets quote unquote like easier? Because I mean, I think, that sounds great.
I think one of the things Kim and I, it took a while. We were young when we got married. She was 19. I was 23. So we were young, probably, too young to get married. We did. And early years with the kids, we struggled. We were trying to make our way in the world. And there were things that, of course, bothered me that she would do. And there's things I did that bothered her. And it took us a while to figure out that we weren't doing it on purpose. It was just who we were. We just need to accept it when she did do something that I didn't like, or, vice versa. It was like, okay, he's not doing it to make me mad. That's just the way he is. And I would think the same. And I think it took us a while to figure that out. And now we just kind of, she'll do something and I smile and laugh and she's like, oh, I'm doing that right. And it just, like I said, it just got easier. We just got to understand that it wasn't about trying to make each other mad. It wasn't because we were upset. It's just, that's the way we were. Different people completely.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And you have two sons, and what are their ages?
My youngest turned 32 yesterday, and my oldest is 34 in September.
Love it. So I got married I turned 21 6 days before my wedding, and then my wife was 22. So also in that, got married young. And it's funny because I think we make the comment like, oh, yeah, we're too young. But then also when you say, we struggled and we had to find our way, I think there's something to be said around that, building that closeness with the person, if you can stick with it. And so what has been your conversation with your boys as they're growing up? Was it like, wait, I guess with getting married young, what was your teaching to your sons around that?
We had the talks every now and then. They knew that their parents were married young. We told them it wasn't bad. It was just tough. It was hard. Not that we regret it in any way, but it was tough. And it was at times having little babies, trying to get through life, moving around in the military.
Right.
So we just kind of said, just, give it some more time. You'll still be there in a couple of years if you want to get married. And both the boys got married in their late 20s.
Okay. Yeah. You guys live Northern California. What is it that you do for a living to provide for the family and then provide value out in the world?
Today I'm working as a general manager of a large scale HOA. So we have about 2,000 homes, 5,000 residents, 150 employees, and we make this place great every day, and it's a great job.
Love it. Love it. And then for a majority of your career, you were in the military. How long were you in the military, and what did that look like for you?
I did 30 years in the military.
Thank you.
Thank you. I started off right at 18, moved out, and I retired at 48. So Kim and I met. I'd already been in a few years in the military. And after we got married and had kids, we moved around a few times, not as many as a lot of people have to do in the military. We only moved 3 or 4 times, so it wasn't too bad.
Nice. Where was your favorite place?
I love Texas. I was in San Angelo, Texas. I was going to school at the time and in the military. I wasn't used to a 9 to 5 job into the military. So going to school was a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I thought it was great. And I'm going home, going to school during the day, coming home, have dinner, seeing the kids on the weekends, where prior to that, being in aviation, we flew nights, weekends, weeks at a time, whatever it took. So San Angelo, I liked because of the time
Yeah,
I
that
had.
structure it gave for maybe easier family time. All right,
Yep.
in your opinion, what's the role of the father?
It took me a while to kind of figure it out, but I think it's to raise kids that are going to be honorable, have integrity, and be able to serve in other community, be a good part of the community, give back when needed, not afraid to go out and do things, build confidence in them. And I think it's really did with our two
Yeah,
boys.
I love it because, right, 30 years in the military, your answer had a lot to do with serving the community. And I think even myself at times, the focus can really be on their success, just to lack of a better word, of like doing well in school, doing well in college, getting a good job, finding a spouse, whatever. This portion of service, where does this passion, desire, why is that such an important component to family and fatherhood?
The kids are both in the military and they're in a rescue unit. And that's what I was
Mm,
in for most of my career. And the motto is that others may
mm.
live. That's our mission every day is we go out and we pick people up on the worst day of their life, bring them home. And it's all about everything we do. We put our life on the line to save one person or a couple of people. And both my boys followed my footsteps and are actually in my old unit
Wow.
and they're serving together in the same unit just down the hall from each other. And the whole thing is everything we do again is to go out and help people. And not that I think that they needed to serve. I'd be happy if they'd done something else. But I think if you have that in you, you're willing to serve, everything else in life is a lot easier. If you have honor, integrity, you're willing to help people, you'll find a good job. You'll find a good wife. Everything in life will fit. It'll just work out if you have those characteristics in life.
I love that. Okay, so I'm looking at this photo that you sent with you and both your sons in your uniform. This is the one photo, I think the one day that you were all dressed down. Is that correct?
Yep. We're all together in Hawaii at Kaneohe Air
And what
Base.
was this day about? Why did it happen to be this day? Like what was going on?
My youngest son and I were out there on a training mission doing kind of Hawaiian type style flying, water mountains, those kind of things. And my oldest son happened to be stationed there as a linguist. And so I called over to his commander and asked if I could borrow him for a day. And she kind of laughed when she saw the name, Major Bothelio was calling to borrow Senior Airman Bothelio for the day. And so she gave him to us and we all hung out for the day and son got to go flying, the oldest one, and that wasn't his job. And we hung out and I asked him to go out and take a picture. And both of them were like, oh, really? Come on, Dad. Don't embarrass me in front of the
Yeah.
whole unit. Like, no, we're going to do
Thank
this.
God you did, right?
So
Having this photo of the three of you. I mean, your smile, their smiles, it looks like just a really special day
mhm,
to have together.
it was. It was definitely the proudest day being in uniform.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of things in my 30 years, but standing there with those two boys was just incredible knowing that they've accomplished anything they want in life. They've done it. They don't need me anymore. They can go out and be their own men now.
Yeah. And I love that. And for you, hearing just kind of what you said, being their own men, you said confidence and stuff, but this idea around service, which I think at the root of service, it's the idea that it's not just about me, right? I have the confidence that I don't just have to make every single second of my life about me. I can go out in the world and make a difference confidently. And so you instill that in them. I love that. And this is really what led to us kind of talking that day at breakfast was, I wasn't in the military. My son is 16. I have one boy, four girls. And he came to me recently and was like, "Hey dad, I'm interested in this." And I'm sure a lot of 16-year-old boys come with that at some point, see a war movie or something like that. So I don't know his level of seriousness about it, but it got me thinking like I wanted to ask you, like, and that's what we did at breakfast. I'm like, "Hey, what's your opinion on the military now? And you're a kid getting into it and is it safe?" Like all the questions. So I'd love just to get your feedback here. If a father's listening right now and he has or hasn't served, what are the things to consider and the opportunities for a son or daughter to get into the military? How do you see that and view that in today's day and age?
I think it's a great opportunity. Again, you don't have to take a role where you're in harm's way or in danger. many jobs that you can do behind the scenes. I helped a lot of kids over the years, my son's age, that were thinking about it and they asked me. I helped them kind of to go through the recruiting process, helped them find the job they wanted. A lot of them asked me to go in and swear them in when they win, which I thought was
Yeah,
just an
how
incredible
honoring.
honor. Yeah, and I talked to their
Mhm.
parents. The parents, some of them hadn't been in the military. Like, I just don't want to do this. I'm afraid for my kid. And we talked through it, but every one of those kids, their parents have come to me after basic
Mm,
training or their basic training plus school and come back and said, what an incredible difference. These kids have just, they're men. They come out or they're grown ladies, they go in and when they come back, they are ready to do it. And every parent is just, I haven't had a single parent come back and say, oh, my kid's changed for the worse. This is incredible. You were right. It has changed my kid. And whether he stays in 4 years or 30, it's huge for those
mm.
kids.
Yeah, definitely something to consider. Recently, maybe a year or so ago, I sat down with my kids because I was realizing that a lot of their input, it's like there's this track, go to high school, go to college. That's just the track. And it's kind of interesting because we live in Kona. In Kona, there's a YWAM campus, which youth with a mission. And so a lot of like young people are on our island. They come here to go do mission work. So they come here, they get trained, and they go do mission work. Anyways, I sat down with my kids and I wish I would have done it when they were in elementary, like fifth, sixth grade versus eighth, ninth, 10th, because they're already kind of on a track. But to say, hey, what are all your options when you graduate high school? Like, I don't, what are they all? So we talked about college, military, mission work, start a business. And so I think as dads, we have an opportunity to talk with our kids and expose them to more than just what everybody else is sort of like doing or thinks they should do, and let your kids wrestle with this, because really high school should be a time to start to cultivate a plan for what's 18, 19, 20 look like. What kind of experience am I going to go get? Any additional thoughts around that, whether it's in regard to the military or not?
Again, on that line, I guess the military isn't just for a lot of kids, it's just a 4 year time to grow. So get out of high school, go to military for 4 years, get all of the benefits that you're going to get them your college tuition and all that. And then after 4 years, then go to school. I wasn't ready to go to college at
Yeah.
18. There's no
Yeah.
way. Even 22, I wasn't ready. So, but it's a way for the kids if they're going to join the military for 4 years, get all the benefits, and then go to college and have it paid for.
Yeah. Okay. It's just a really good, depending on where people sit politically or not, college is interesting. When I went to do one of the college tours with my daughter, which it's been great for her, but like even the college dorm had a laundry service at one of these places. And I'm like, wait a second. These kids are continuing to kind of like go down this entitled path. Like I sort of get it, but I think there's even option for cleaning service for their bathrooms. And I'm like, I just don't feel like the military is going to be doing that. You're going to be cleaning your own stuff up. You know what I mean? So, I wonder, especially as I think of my son, like, or even me, I wasn't ready for college at 18, but that was just kind of like, that's what you do next. So interesting to think about the military and some options there. And again, then this idea like you could get your college paid for.
Yep. And they're going to send you to school in the military, and that'll be college credits right
Mm,
there. So you can apply those to college, and it teaches you the discipline and everything you need to go to college. 18 coming out, not ready for college, don't know how to act in school. The military is going to teach you some of those things. So when you get to college, you can have some discipline. You're going to understand how to study, manage your time, those kind of
yeah.
things.
Okay, we'll wrap this portion up, but just any either pros and cons, or if I was coming to you and saying, "Hey, my son's 17, he wants to get in the military," what were be a few things that you would advise me on so that I could show up well for my son if I didn't like have you to go down to the recruiting center with me?
Just really look at the jobs in the military. Because there's hundreds of jobs at every branch. What is it you want to do? And if you have something you're thinking about doing later in life, whether you want to get in the medical field, then get in the medical field in the military. Let them start your training, get you going down that path, and then finish the college if that's what you need. But definitely look at all the jobs, because the recruiters, their job is to fill certain positions, and they have a list of jobs that they have to fill, one through whatever, and they're going to push you to each one of those jobs. But what the military needs, not what you need. So make sure you go in there saying, no, this is the only job I'm going to take, and this is what I want.
And then how realistic is that? Meaning if I say, "Hey, I'm coming in and this is the job I want," and it's available, can they change that on me? Or is it, like I can get the job and sign up and they kind of are going to follow through with that?
Yeah, once you sign the contract, it's a binding contract. They will send you to that school. It may take
Right.
longer to get in. They may say, I can't get you in for 8 months
Mm,
or a year, but they'll get you in when the spot's
yeah.
available.
Good. Well, dads, I think something really huge to connect on. And then, like for me, I'm going to have Brody talk to Sean sometime in the next couple months. So like when you meet other men like Sean or others in the military or whatever it is, doctors, lawyers, whatever your kid might be interested in, I think all men are like, oh yeah, I'd meet with your kid for a phone call or a Zoom or a coffee. Like we all want to invest in each other. And I think in some ways that's been lost in our culture. This like it takes a village. But I think if I were asked, if Sean was asked, if you were asked, right, you listening right now, if you were asked, hey, you have this expertise, would you meet with my son? You have no, yes, of course. So we make time for that stuff. We care about other men growing. So you had talked about being in your kids growing up in the military and something about, you guys would go camping and the kids like had uncles and aunts around them. Kind of talk a little bit about the camaraderie that is experienced in the dynamics of the military.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it. It was kind of a village. They were all uncles and aunts. The kids knew they could go to any one of them. They would help them. They would talk to them. They would, we would have next, and they'd play with their uncles and aunts all the time. It was a big family. It really was. And being the unit, the military units, depending on what type you're in, they really embrace that and they do everything together. And we would again take our camping trips together. We would take helicopters out on the weekends, up to shows, and the kids would sleep in helicopters. It was just, it was all one big family.
Sounds so fun. I think a lot of us want that camaraderie of family, so finding a way to build that, the military seems to provide that. Okay, when did you embrace fatherhood? So you're young, you have kids young, you're in the military, your time, your schedule. At what point did you go, man, fatherhood really matters and I really want to lean into raising these boys? Because, some guys, I think it's like you hear the words you're going to be a dad and it's like, oh man, it's more just like scary and okay. Some guys are there at the birth, they're like, this is wild. And then some guys, it takes till their kids 2, 3, 4, 5 until they really feel this connection. So for you, when was there this connection and this embracing of fatherhood?
It was definitely a few years into the first couple of years, you nailed it all. I'm going to be a dad. I'm scared. The first time I held that baby, it's like, I can't do this. And the first couple of years, like, just don't let me do anything, hurt this kid. I just need to get this kid through a couple of years. But I think as they started getting a little bit older, then it started changing into teaching them, right from wrong, manners, to be polite, those kind of things. And as we got a little bit older, it just got a little more, we tried harder. We put more time into the kids as they were getting older. And we got to that late elementary, junior high, knowing that if we didn't, we only had a certain time before they started going off on their own,
Right.
good or bad. But if we want to direct them down the right path, that was, the elementary, junior high years. And we're like, all right, we better get this right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think especially for younger dads or dads who feel like a little disengaged, they don't really know how. It's like when you hear about you and your sons in the military, it's like, oh my gosh, they're so close, they're tight, there's this deep connection. They obviously followed in your footsteps to a degree, right? So there's big influence you've had. So I think it's helpful for dads to go, it's like the idea of the moment I saw him for the first time or held him for the first time, it was magic. I think a lot of guys don't feel that way. And so it's helpful to just hear the other side of it. What was your relationship like with your dad? So the way I ask it is just two simple questions and answer them however you like. But what's something you appreciated about your dad? And then what's something you wish your dad would have done differently?
My parents were divorced when I was a couple of years old. So my parents didn't get along. So it was rough through our childhood. My mom didn't want us to see the dad. Our dad was bad on our mom. So it was, we didn't have a great relationship with my dad, or close relationship, I'd say, just because we didn't see him as much. But I appreciate my dad was hardworking. He was in the grocery business and he got up and went to work every day. He was early, he stayed after, and he put hard work into it every day. So I kind of appreciate that. It's like, all right, you got to work hard to get something. And I do appreciate that. I guess what I wish was different was spending more time with us, but I know that wasn't his option. It was the parents' thing.
How did that impact you? In maybe two thoughts is either A, did it make you nervous becoming a dad? Or B, did you find another sort of model that you had like noticed in high school or young adult that you were able to look to as sort of a guide to what you wanted your fatherhood journey to look like?
I think that helped me in knowing that I wanted to different for my kids. I wanted to be there for my kids all the time. My wife and I, Kim, again, I've mentioned it. We struggled when we were young, like everybody does. but we were more invested. We were not going to we weren't going to give it everything we had. And even then, we were going to give it more.
Yeah.
We were determined to stay together and have our kids grow up in a family that loved them, and mom and dad were always there.
Yeah. And I love the word you use. We were determined to stay together. We were determined to figure it out. I think it's just so easy to split up these days. And I get it. There are circumstances. So I don't want to discredit anybody who's listening to this. But if you're listening to this and you're wrestling with your marriage, how can you be determined? And I know it takes two. So, like, can you both be determined? I think the overall big picture benefit for our children and our children's children is really something worth investing time and energy into.
Totally agree. And one of the things when we told our kids this, and I mentioned determined, there were times that I was more determined than she was, and there was vice
Yeah.
versa. There were times that I may not have been happy, but she was more determined, and it's always an up and down, and they're not always synced
Yeah.
together. And those are the hardest times. But no, we put everything into it to make sure we're going to make this happen. And then, like I said, once that we got older and the kids were older, it got easier, and it's easier now.
You obviously did good work and worked hard. You're together now. Your kids are doing well. A question that I have is there's a story you shared with me about high school, one of your son's friends who passed away. And this story was really moving. I'd love for you to share the story to whatever level you can. And then I'd like to unpack a couple things because I'd like more men to create homes that created this opportunity or space, I should say.
Yeah, it was our son's, I believe it was junior year, and there was about 4 or 5 of the kids that were very tight. They all played football together. During the summer, they were, out on the water together. They were always together doing something. And one of the kids died from the parents suspect was playing the choking game.
Oh,
And it was a tragic loss.
so sad.
It was needless. Happened on a Sunday. My son's best friend that we've known forever, and he calls my wife and I mom and dad all the time. He pretty much lived with us throughout his probably junior high years, always around. So he was actually there when it happened. And first thing he did is came over to our house after and just wanted to talk and cry. The boy didn't pass away immediately. He was, they airlifted him out and they were doing what they could to keep him going. And that was probably about noon or so on the Sunday. Throughout the day, kids started showing up, and these were all kids that we had dinner with over the years, or we were mom and dad, team dads. So we were always around these kids. So they came over to the house and they cried. They wanted to talk. They wanted a hug. And that was kind of, it built up throughout the day. And by that evening, we probably had 15 or more kids over our house that, most of them we knew pretty well. Some we kind of knew, but we thought it was kind of chilling that they all kind of showed up. And later that night, they got word that the boy had passed away just after midnight. And then you can imagine things just, got really bad at the house. You've got these 40, 50 kids. They were all pretty upset. All this is going on. We're trying to comfort all these other kids. We didn't really spend that much time with our own son. He was there too, but we had all these other kids and he was okay with it. He just said, hey, you're helping these other kids too. So it was kind of quite a night. The next morning we woke up about 6:00. I woke my wife up and said, hey, we've got 50 something kids in the house and they're teenagers. They're going to be hungry. Let's get downstairs and figure this out. We got to start cooking them breakfast. So we get up, we go downstairs and we hear this racket in the kitchen. And there's probably 3 or 4 couples, parents from some of the other kids had brought over everything you can imagine and taken over the kitchen. And they're cooking eggs and bacon and waffles. And they've got everything. They got everything to feed all these kids. And they basically told us, go back upstairs, go to bed. We'll get you guys later. Throughout the next day, more kids showed up. So the next night we had probably over 100 kids staying at our house. And they were every flat spot, back deck, every spot in the house, they were lying. And they were mourning, they were grieving, they were upset. And we talked to kids just nonstop, just bouncing around, talking to different groups of kids. The chaplains came over, the football coaches, and it was just a rough couple of days for the kids. And then the third night, the kids did a walking candlelight vigil from our house to the boys' house to see his parents. And there was probably over 300 kids that final night that all gathered at our house and then, walked off. And then they kind of started dispersing that night. We only had a few kids, but the one kid ended up staying with us for weeks on weeks. He just could not go home. His mom actually came and stayed in our spare room when he was there.
Did that kid have a dad? I mean, obviously he had a dad, but a dad at home?
The kid that stayed with us, his parents were divorced. His dad is in the Midwest, and he did have a great relationship with him. So he kind of grew up, again, calling his dad, and he was always there. He had questions. He had something going on in life. He would call me and come over just to get advice and just want to talk.
Is there anything you can point to, or a couple things that made your house, your space, the place that the kids found comfort?
Him and I kind of thought about that over the years, and probably like that fourth day when it was all done, it's like, why are all these kids here? And, we started thinking back, and I think it really is our, not only were we involved in their football, always on the sidelines, we were with all the wrestlers. We were the team dad and the mom dad, or the team mom, went to all their tournaments. We fed the kids every morning. We were on the sideline cheering when their parents weren't there and motivating them, and just always there for them. Always, pat on the back when they lost, high five when they won.
Mhm.
Then one thing we used to do is we'd have dinner at our house. And it was always no phones at the table. They were in a bowl outside the room. And we had to talk. It was the family would talk. And even as busy as we were, we made a point of doing it several times a week. And when their friends would come over, we'd tell their friends, hey, leave your phone in the other room if you want to have dinner. And they'd kind of like, why? And then they did. And they thought it was kind of weird. And after a while, they got to telling our kids, like, hey, this is cool. You do this every night. You guys have dinner and talk and laugh and have a great dinner. And so a lot of those kids that had dinner with us, over the years had come to our house and had dinner, and we made them sit down and be polite and, pass the food. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And I think that's kind of, they knew who we were. They knew that we were very family oriented. And I think that's why they all just kind of stood
Mhm.
up.
What a beautiful opportunity, and that you guys were there and had the space for it. Dads, as you're listening, I think some of the things to consider is like, okay, family dinner. Let your kids, maybe there's a week, one night a week or a couple nights or whatever. Hey, if you want your friends to come over and have dinner with us, they can. And then I know it's like when my son, like he has a friend come over, he'll be like, all right, we're heading to my room. And I'm like, nope, sit at the table for a minute. You know what I mean? Like give us 15 minutes, sit down at the table, eat with us, do not turn the TV on every time or rarely, So family dinner, love that. I also really want us to point or wanted to point out that you said it so simply, but being at the games, obviously you knew their names. And then you said, gave them a high five when they won and a hand on the back when they lost. Like, dad, it doesn't matter how much money you make, what your job is, how much time you have. Like, you have the ability to do that. Like, to go not be on your phone at the game working on something, but learning the kids' names and then encouraging them, being there and creating the space that, like, kids need stability so bad in our world right now. And you guys created that, right? There was a place for stability because you were consistent. So, man, I like to say fatherhood isn't just about your kids, it's a posture, right? And you've clearly taken that fatherhood posture, even to the point where these kids are calling you guys mom and dad because they long for that and they're experiencing that stability and leadership and unconditional love clearly from you guys.
Yep. I hope that's why they do it.
Well, I mean, I think the story speaks for itself. And I think it's encouraging for guys because here's the reality: life is messy, shit's happening all the time. And can you be a house where the chaos of the world doesn't exist? So when kids come through your doors, they just feel something different. And just your presence can create that. You don't have to be in every conversation. You don't have to be the funny dad, the silly dad, the smart dad. Just be you. Kids are longing for that more than ever. One of the questions that I like to ask is about, like, men are warriors and we like to fight. The podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes, but like there's, what is it that you're rebelling against, but not just to tear something down, but to create something in its space? So for Sean, is there anything that you are fighting against, rebelling against, and then trying to create something in its place?
I think the father being in the family, I think it's just, they need it. They don't have that father figure there. It's going to be tough for these kids to grow up and be good people in life. I think that's, and I know we kind of talked about it, is, fighting for the marriage, make it work, be there for the kids, and do everything you can, because just, you don't see too many divorced family children. It's not easy. It's harder for
Yeah.
them. Not that they're not going to succeed, but it's definitely harder for them to get where they want to go. And it's much easier having the mom and dad in the family.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is, like, I know I've heard you talk about mistakes, right? Like, we're all going to make mistakes. But what's your thoughts around how do you handle making a mistake as a dad? And I guess also, how do you handle a mistake when your kid would make one? especially in those teenage years or even when they're out of your house?
That's one thing we made mistakes. And of course, I made mistakes raising the kids. I would realize it and I would
Mhm.
apologize and own it and say, hey, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Like, I handled the situation wrong. Let's talk about it. And if it's a problem, or bring it up if you see me doing it again,
Mhm.
let me know, because I don't want to make that mistake again. I think when the kids would make mistakes, of course, we disciplined the kids. We, did everything we could to raise them right. But we also let them know that a mistake it doesn't change how we feel
Mm.
about them. We're going to correct it. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen, and we'll move on. We'll have short memories and forget about it as long as you don't do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I love that. Even in your response when you were talking about your mistakes, that never once did you say, "Hey, I'm sorry I did this. I did it because." Like you weren't there's no justification in it. It was like, "Hey, I'm sorry this happened. I want to own this. I apologize." And then I also like giving the opportunity to our sons, daughters, spouse, "Hey, if I do this again, like let me know because I don't want to do this." And even going back to you talking about you and Kim early years of marriage, sometimes I'm not doing this on purpose. I'm not doing this on purpose, right? Like it's just and it's not that it's an excuse for me to not change because obviously we all want to grow, but sometimes I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna make a mistake. So how do we talk through it? Have a short memory. I like that, and then move forward. How has your relationship with your boys shifted as they've become men? How has that shifted, and how do you see your role in their lives now?
They've definitely become independent. I think that's one thing, we really wanted to raise the kids to be confident first. Once they were confident in themselves, then they were going to be independent. As they get older, they are extremely independent. So it's kind of they come to me if they have big issues, big problems that they can't figure out. But it's become more like friends now. I call them and, hey, my youngest son's a pilot. Hey, what sorties you flying this week? What are you doing? Because I was an engineer at one time. So we kind of trade stories on flying. My oldest son is an intelligence analyst. So I did that for part of my career. So we trade stories. Hey, what are you working on? What's going on in the world? I saw this on the news. And so we've become more friends. We talk a lot more just about what they're doing in life and, how they enjoy it. Things going well for them.
Mm. How did you and Kim approach your sons getting married? And let's just use the example of the son who lives close right now with the baby. If they're calling you a couple times a week to like, hey, we're popping up for dinner, clearly there's a closeness, there's a comfort, there's a safety that his wife feels. And so, how did you guys approach that he's going to get married and the kind of relationship you wanted to have with your daughter in law?
We're extremely lucky. We have a beautiful daughter-in-law. They get along great. So when they told us they were going to get married, we were super excited. We were real happy. She's South African. Her family was going to fly over, do a small wedding with her family and our family. Super excited. My son and her asked me to officiate the wedding, which I
Ah,
was extremely proud to
that's
do.
awesome.
So that was really cool to do. And the fact that they asked me, I was humbled. It's like, the fact that you asked me to be your officiant, I think is pretty cool. So we were super excited and we encouraged them and we think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, for them to ask you to officiate, there's clearly this posture of just consistent trust that you've created, which I think every dad wants, right? That's what we want. We want our kids to like that. That's an intimate ask for them to trust us to that level. And then also for their spouse too. That's on just the horizon for me, like as I'm like, oh my gosh, in the next 10 years, I'm gonna have four sons and a daughter that kind of join the family, so like as I talk to men on the podcast who have stepped into that phase, it's like, hey, I want the guy with the 10-year-old thinking about this kind of, because I think it's important to think into the future. And then it's something that I'm thinking about as well right now at this stage. Okay, Sean, now that you're stepping into being a grandfather, what kind of grandfather do you want to be? So, like over the next 10, 15, 20 years, what do you want to lean into? What do you want your relationship to be like? What are the things you want to do, see as your grandfather?
We want to be there for them as much as we can, of course. We love spending time with them. We want to have experiences and memories that as he's growing up, he's going to remember these things that he did with his grandparents. Went here, learned something new, travel with them, see things for the first time. That's really, we want him to just remember him growing up and all the fun things and the new experiences.
Mm. Yeah, what an opportunity. How is it different, being a father versus a grandfather?
It's weird. When we first had the grandbaby, thought, okay, we're going to have a grandkid. This is terrific. But the first time you see the grandkid and hold him, it's a different experience than when we had our first kid or when we had our child. And I kind of, my wife and I laugh about it. It's like, when we were young and had our kids, we didn't know any better. We were just trying to get by. And like I said earlier, don't do anything that's going to hurt this kid first couple of years of life. With a grandchild, it's like, let's just go have fun and do all the fun things we couldn't do when we were young.
How was it seeing your son with his baby, like that first kind of like few weeks of spending time with them? What was that like for you?
It was incredible to see, again, I think they turned into great young men, and to see him being a daddy himself. And I just, knowing the person he is, I know he's going to raise a great child. He's going to give the kid everything he needs to be a perfect adult too. And so just seeing the love he's given that child, it was pretty awesome. It was incredible.
Yeah, man, so special. Sean, any last thoughts or stories or anything that comes to mind that you would want to share with a young dad, a dad of teens, a dad of young adults? Anything come to mind that you'd want to share before I ask my final question?
I think I kind of mentioned it in, we talked the notes earlier was, I think it's all about building confidence in the kids. I really think the instilling confidence in our boys as they were growing up that they could do anything. And if they failed, it wasn't the end of the world. We'll just reset and do it again. You'll get better and learn. And I think our boys learned a lot from that over life. Just we gave them you could do anything, and if you don't do it, we'll reset and keep going. And I think that was kind of the foundation for everything. If they have the confidence, they're going to grow up to have the integrity, the honor, everything else you need to be a good man in life.
What are some ways that a father can help their sons build confidence? Like I know you use, maybe you can talk about it a bit. I want to say you use, but the boys were interested in wrestling, right? So you utilize that to help build confidence in them. What are some ways that that you did it and that other fathers could build confidence in their sons?
I think taking them out of their comfort zone and letting them experience something different. And one of the examples with our boys, they would wrestle in an association, which was kind of the Sacramento area wrestling. And every weekend there's a wrestling tournament, but they go and it's the same kids that they wrestle. And they kind of, you find out, how good the kids are, and they end up wrestling the same kids in the final matches. And it's the same thing over and over. And we would take the kids on weekends and like, hey, we're going to go to a Giants game this weekend. And do you guys want to wrestle in the North Bay? And go to a completely different school, kids they've never seen or met. And the kids were comfortable with going in there by themselves. When we'd go to a tournament in Sacramento, they'd be surrounded by, 24 kids that they'd grown up with. And they would kind of lean on them. When you take them to a place, it's just the two boys, they would get out there and they would wrestle all these new kids, and they would wrestle people of varying skills. And, they'd win, they'd lose, but at the end of the day, they were confident enough to get out there on the mat and not be, well, I don't have my 24 friends watching me or around me. And they did that. So we would do that on weekends. About once a month, we'd find a different place and say, hey, we're going to go to Giants game this weekend. Hey, we're going to go see grandma and grandpa down in San Jose, and you guys going to wrestle in San Jose that weekend. And they never thought twice about it. They always wanted like, yeah, let's go find someplace new and new challenges. And I think that was the world of them, just knowing that they could go anywhere, be comfortable, be confident.
What made wrestling important to them? Was it just something they chose and they liked, or what got them into that?
My oldest son was playing football, and he thought that was the coolest, toughest sport in the world. And he was walking by the wrestling room one night, and the wrestling coach said, hey, football player, you think you're a tough guy? Why don't you get here and wrestle? And so my son's like, I'm going to be here tomorrow. And so he went in and wrestled and just fell in love with it. And again, he didn't know any of the wrestlers, didn't know the coach. The coach challenged him, and he's like, all right, I'll take you up on that. Let's try this.
So then why, if you had to say one reason why you then created opportunities for them to wrestle kids outside, I know we talked about confidence. Was that the primary reason, or was there anything else behind that?
Again, I think it was to take them out of the comfort zone, get them to a place that they've never wrestled. They're going to be around hundreds of other people they've never met or seen. They were wrestling different styles of, the Greco-Roman, the grappling. So it was just get them out of, you wrestle every weekend in Sacramento against the same group of kids. Let's go somewhere else and let's give you the confidence to go do anything. And one of my stepsister says, my two boys, she kind of looks at them and goes, you could take those two kids and put them anywhere in the world, drop them off with nothing, and they'll be fine and they'll find their way home. And I think that's just because of the confidence that you built in themselves.
I mean, that is an enormous compliment right? As a father, like as a father hearing that about your kid, that's an enormous compliment. And the reason why I kind of like pushed on the question just slightly is I think sports are for character building, confidence, right? That's what sports are for. I mean, last night there's some weird bullying stuff going on. Girls are rough, man. Anyways, a girl's kind of being bullied at school. My daughter's friends with some of those girls, but wasn't a part of it. But the mom sent a text out to a bunch of parents like, "Hey, this is happening." We were the only parents to text back, like, "Come over to our house. Let's like talk about this." So last night for like an hour and a half, we're at our dinner table, another set of parents, their daughter, our daughter, like helping bring clarity, talk about all this. Like this sport that they're in is an opportunity for character building. And that's what happened for our daughter and their daughter last night. The reason I bring it up is I think too many parents are doing the traveling to Sacramento and the Bay Area and this, that, and the other, because it's like my kid's going to wrestle in college and my kid's going to be professional, this, that, and the other. And we almost get so wrapped up in our kid just being the very best at sports versus are they learning good character? Are they learning how to win well and lose well? Are they building confidence, etc.? And I think as dads, we get to set the tone for why our kids are in sports and how they're experiencing it and what's the point.
Totally agree. It really wasn't about trying to make them
Yeah.
better to get into college. It was just they would go into this room of 100 people they've never met. By the end of the day, they're hanging out with kids from different schools and now talking to them. They're, standing up, giving each other tips on different wrestling. And it was just about, the ability to do that, to get up and go anywhere. And the winning losing thing, quick story on our, we went to one of these schools and our son ended up wrestling the home school's wrestling coach. And our son was probably a senior in high school. And he's like, "Oh, great. I got to wrestle their coach. How's this going to go?" And he ended up beating the coach. But the kid that was scoring it didn't want to score against his own coach. So he scored it wrong so that my son wouldn't beat him.
Wow.
And my son kind of got up and kind of shook his head like, "I know that's not right." But he went and shook the coach's hand and, didn't take the loss as a hit. And immediately the coach went over to the ref and said, "No, you scored that wrong.
Wow.
Redo it." He won.
Wow.
And my son, just then he was happy, shook the coach's hand again. And they had a long talk afterwards. But again, he won, but he didn't fight it. He's like,
But
"All
he
right,
didn't need anyone else to say it. I mean, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
To not need someone else to say it. I don't need the trophy. I'm confident enough, comfortable enough with myself that I can just know where I'm at. That's huge. Dads, I'd encourage you, two things that I kind of gather from this is one, Sean wasn't into wrestling, but he supported his kids and used that as an opportunity to teach them, train them, grow them. So you don't always have to be like die hard, whatever your kid's about. How can you step in and help use that passion they have to help shape their character? And then what is it? It doesn't have to be wrestling. It can be football. It can be art. It can be music. It can be whatever, like find ways to work on your kids' character and confidence through their passions, right? Through their passions. I think what an opportunity we have. Man, Sean, wow. Thank you so much. Here's my final question for you. Imagine you're now 85 years old. Okay. 85. Your grandchild right now is 25 years old. You're standing on a cul-de-sac, peering into their home. What is it that you would see in your grandchild's life happening in their home? I'd put a smile on your face, a tear in your eye that you're like, wow, this was passed from me to my kid to my grandkid. And now it's being played out like there's this piece I have as I'm towards the end of my life. What is it that you'd see?
I would hope they have, a wonderful family, loving their family. I hope, my grandson grows up to be like my boys. I have no doubt he's going to be, but that's what I want him to be is a strong, independent, confident young man that believes he can do anything in the world and he'll take it on and he'll remember, the way he was raised by his dad and his grandpa being around. And that's what I would hope for.
Guys, I want you to hear that. I think a lot of times it's like, oh, I hope they're like me. And you said that they're like your sons. And I think that's the opportunity we have here is, are we thinking generationally to the point of, I want my sons to stand on my shoulders. I want my grandson to stand on my son's shoulders, right? Like we want to flip the patriarchal triangle upside down in a sense that we're on the bottom pushing everything up. Like we want it all to grow and to like build on top of the life that we've lived. So, Sean, clearly from this conversation, that's the life that you're living. You are a man with a heart of service to all those who've been placed in your care, whether it's, military or your job now, or your wife, your kids, your grandkids. So keep doing, or the neighbor kids. I mean, I love that story so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep loving, serving the world. I just honor you. I'm grateful for our time together. And I look forward to and hope for further conversations with you, just as our hearts as fathers and men and definitely align. So blessings to you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was fun.
Awesome. All right. Until next time. Oh, what an incredible conversation. I just love meeting with dads who care, who are that guy on the street who has open doors to love and serve any and all. The things that I really left with this conversation, were one, continuing to look for opportunities to build confidence in my kids. I mean, I would love for anybody to say your kid could be dropped into any town, anywhere, and they would find a way and make a way and thrive. And the other is, military has never really been a part of my world. And when my son had come to me bringing it up, it's like, okay, I'm starting to ask, I'm starting to learn, I'm starting to listen. And so the conversation is really helpful for me to think through how to best support. My friend, if these conversations are helpful, please write a review. I do this because I love it. And when you write a review, it just helps promote that fatherhood matters. And then take it one step further, copy this link, share it with a friend and say, hey, you're a great dad. I thought you might enjoy this. Super simple and a great way to connect other fathers to this podcast. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shao. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.